channeled message for you. It's going to be a briefer one because I was getting ready to make a phone call, but it came through, so here I am. And it's actually two songs this time, and it's funny because the first song, when I heard it on the radio, I went to look it up to really look at the lyrics. There was something about it, and that's funny because it didn't quite give me everything, and I knew that there was a dualistic energy about it, but it didn't quite make sense. And I was kind of trying to feel for like maybe another song or something else in it just to be like, what is it? And actually, I ended up looking at a few songs below it and was like, aha, there it is. So the first song is After a Few. It's by Travis. I didn't write down his last name. It's got a D in it, Travis D. And then the second song is Pretty Heart by Parker McCollum. And so the main message that I was getting, so the first song, After a Few, the lyrics are literally about a guy who is, it's funny, I even went and looked up the story behind the song, which sometimes like if you hear a song and you know that it's like from your DM or from somebody or about something, and the lyrics themselves don't quite give you the clarity you're looking for, look up and see if the artist wrote about what the meaning or the story behind the song was. And that can sometimes give you a little more information or give you kind of a this is where the energy's at kind of thing. But the song is about a guy who's like, I shouldn't have said hello. I shouldn't have come up and I shouldn't have gone over to you when I saw you looking, and I shouldn't have had that third drink because every time I have that third drink, we end up leaning up against my car and then we end up in my bed. And what's funny is I got these two energies off of it, and they kept dancing with each other. And so for the DMs that are sending these songs, that first one is a combination of them thinking about interactions with karmics. And a lot of DMs right now, especially those in like, you know, class of 2021 grad or yeah, 21 grads are they're trying to get out of karmic situationships. Some of them with multiple karmics, you know, like they might get out of it with one and then have another one pop in. Especially we're coming up on Mercury retrograde energy here soon too, so that's not surprising. Like some of these masculines too. Maybe you'll recognize this. Like some of them were ones that held on to exes and even like karmic friends and things like that. Like they kind of got into resource hoarding, for a lack of a better way to put it, because they probably grew up with scarcity and have been dealing with like fears of abandonment, and then had multiple karmic interactions where they kind of got this belief, like I want to say it's more subconscious, but they got this belief going on that it was better to hold on to lots of crappy relationships and bad people, or not bad people, I don't like saying that, but like things that weren't meant for them, because it felt safer than having none. Like these are DMs that really have had a big challenge with seeing themselves as capable of like feeling loved and being loving and being successful on their own, like trying to find fulfillment in themselves. And a lot of them have gone back and forth with drinking. They probably grew up with one or both parents that got into drinking, and so that was kind of the way to, like, they had to have a mask on all the time, and so when they would go and drink, it would like they felt loving. And it feels like these DMs are kind of the types that, like, they didn't realize when they drink, the reason that they like to drink is because it makes them feel like lovers. Like, not, and, and because of the drinking too, like, they also felt more lovable, but they kind of made this, they had this weird thing to where, like, in those moments, whoever was around them became like the object of their affection, and vice versa, because they did have a really great energy when that happened. But then two things happened. One, they would often, like, they would be seeing the genuine, good, loving sides of people in that energy, but then it would be to the detriment of all of the rest, both, compatibility, karmic cycles of the people that they were connected with, things like that. And so they would develop an attachment with them that was really, really fast and was only based on like little bits of kind of that initial flirtatious honeymoon energy, and they would go off of that. Like it's funny because it's not wrong, but it's also not right, because they were pedestaling these people because they were seeing only the positive loving side of them, and then would go from that and like kind of ignore all the rest of the red flags and things like that, because they saw in those moments that really like deep, genuine, like part of us, that the part of us, a part of every person, no matter, no matter how bad you might qualify them as, we all have a part of us that's connected to source, and that part of us that's connected to source is always good and always loving and, always lovable. And so these DMs would see that part and then just completely override the rest, because they felt like they had a lot of flaws, and that they wanted somebody to see the real them in, that spirit part of them, and overlook everything. And so they were kind of doing these karmic cycles with these karmics to see that it was that they needed to see themselves that way, not that they needed to find somebody else to see that way. And these karmics were brought in to help them learn that, but they didn't see that at the time. They were doing the best they could with what they knew and what they had at the time. But because of that, they maintained a lot of connections that were really meant to, have faded or gone a different direction, and allowed themselves to glow up and vibe up and not worry about it. But they held on to a lot of them. And then when, because that really continued to pull them into like they'd try to get high vibe, but then they're with a lot of these people that either their life path is an intention to help to keep others down so they'll go up higher, or they're just in their own healing cycle. They drag a lot of people into it, and they feed off of that higher energy. And so these DMs would basically become like feeding resources, and oftentimes also, financial and sexual resources. They would pull in people who really like tested that part of them, that wanted to have someone they loved beyond their flaws. Like it was very, it's funny. I get this energy. It was like it's very sweet and genuine, but it's also very naive. And it's one of those, like, when they get into their evolved energy, it'll be good. They will see everybody from how source and spirit sees them, and they'll be in a place of holding love for everyone, even those who have hurt them in the past, but with healthy boundaries, and without taking it as a personal problem that they don't want to be around that energy, and they won't take personally when they say, you know what, I'm going to have healthy boundaries and not reconnect with you, and the other person gets upset about it, because they'll recognize that even doing that is likely helping those people in the ways that they did want to help them. In any case, that was a lot more coming out than I meant to have for that one, but it feels like these DMs, they're still working on separating. It feels like most of them, to be honest, are already single, in the sense that like their karmic situationships have crumbled. Olympus has fallen. If you haven't checked out that reading that Divine Maverick did, like check that one out, because it feels like that kind of energy for these particular DMs, that they're in an energy of, like it's not working. It hasn't worked. I feel like these karmics are likely repeating for these DMs old cycles. It feels like these are not older DMs, but maybe like between, I want to say between like 32 and 50-ish. And which doesn't happen. I mean, if you feel the rest of this message fits and your DM is not in those age ranges, then apply what feels right. But that's what it feels like overall, that's where they are. And they've had past relationships that really, really hurt them. And it colored the way that they went into new relationships. And they really were guarded, because they kind of, there's been this overarching theme even of DMs who, like, they gave so fully of themselves, and when it didn't work, instead of saying, oh well, it didn't work with that person because I needed to learn certain lessons, or it didn't work with that person because we weren't meant to go into that sort of an alignment with each other. Instead, they went to this place of I was bad and wrong and I screwed it up because I gave so fully of myself. Like they took in, which is not necessarily a wrong lesson, it's kind of a detour. It's like going the long way around to recognize that actually no, it was really good that they were open and they gave fully of themselves. They just needed to be able to recognize when something was not meant for them, and to recognize that the lessons that came in from the hurt that happened was actually meant to help them be stronger in being authentic and to do more of that. And they're kind of either they're learning that or they're gonna learn that. Either way, it feels like these DMs are kind of back in that energy of like the karmics that they were with, that they're trying to, that they've mostly untangled from in the 3D, but are still emotionally still kind of in it. Like it feels like these DMs knew that, like, they're old enough that they knew it really wasn't going to pan out, but they were upset with some stuff in their lives and they were trying to make it work because they were tired of relationships that didn't pan out. And it feels like they, like, the, jumping in with these karmics, it was if, especially if you were in union with them before, that they were really upset that it didn't work with you, and they were trying to avoid an old fear message that got instilled in them starting in childhood, and then with these other karmics, that they always screw things up, and that they always screw relationships up. And it's part of spirit helping them heal this thing about them feeling like they really, really, like, need or want a relationship, and they need somebody else in order for them to feel happy and fulfilled and successful. And so it's like bringing in, it's funny, it's not that they have to go through that, it's not that they can't be in relationships, but their fear is based on feeling like they'll melt into like lack of existence or something like that if they don't have like an object of affection or somebody pursuing them, giving them affection. And so because that's their fear, they're manifesting that fear, and that's going through, that they put in like extra energy into a karmic situation that they really like. They're in the back of their minds, their intuition's constantly saying like, I mean, you can do this, buddy, but it's not going to work in the end. Like, and it doesn't have anything to do with you doing it right or doing it wrong. It's not meant to work, and you're going to have to be single at some point because that's how you face your fear. It's not that you're being punished. It's not, but they're still kind of learning a lot of this stuff and seeing it, but they held on to it for a long time, and they held on to past ones for longer than they really should have. And so it feels like these karmics are still coming in and out, and like trying to use some of the ways that they got these DMs in the beginning, which a lot of these DMs feel like those that got back into drinking or drugs or various things that put them back in a loving feeling. And so these karmics are kind of doing this thing of like, you know what, let's talk about things. Like maybe they, I don't know, I kind of get this image of like karmics that were trying all sorts of different things. They may have even like copied some of the DFs if they knew, if they knew you or things like that, and tried to, like, it's like they took what they saw you doing in 3D. Like if you have a strong connection with your DM, and let's say that you have a strong music connection, so you try, you communicated with them through music. It wasn't even a trying, you just did. And maybe you were practicing being authentic in it, and and because you were not in a predatory energy, you weren't trying to do anything, you were just communicating, it actually created a genuine connection. Because these DMs, they're very empathic. They can tell when you're trying to pull one over on them. Even if they, funny enough, is these DMs, I feel like that's such a certainty. These DMs know when somebody is trying to pull one over on them, but they often convince themselves later that it's the people who were pulling something on them that weren't, and the people that were not were the ones that were. It's kind of a weird thing that they're having to heal from, trusting their intuition and things. But let's say that you did that stuff, And the karmic kind of noticed that, so they tried to use music to do it, but they didn't really understand it, and they had a different kind of motive. And so even if the DMs didn't get it, didn't hear it and see it, spirit did. And so it did not quite work. And let's say that, as time went on, you interacted with your DM and you had some arguments and stuff like that, and your DM, even if you've been known them for a long, long time, you know them well enough to let, like, even if you were in a genuine emotional spin, you would know right what to go for to cut the jugular. Or if you were in a space of knowing that your DM needed a little, like, fire under their butt, you may have known what to say. And you also, because you love your DM, you didn't go to certain places that you knew would really, really, really hurt them, but you got close enough because you knew that they needed to have some sort of a heart moment. And these karmics may have seen that, or maybe, yeah, I'm getting so many in there may have been other times that you set boundaries, and you were literally setting boundaries, not to, like, it wasn't the you're not talking to me so I'm going to block you. It was more like, I'm not going to talk with you when you're in this state, or if you have kids with them, like, we're not going to have family time until you are in a good place mentally. If you are coming from drama land with karmics over to interact with our children, and that's creating negative experiences for our kids, then that will not happen. Or the kids will not be around karmics, or something that was more surrounded around, like, it wasn't a punishment, it was simply practicing healthy boundaries. And maybe you even maybe had a few weird steps, because if you weren't great at putting up boundaries or holding boundaries that were healthy and not overdone, it may have been a little bit wonky, but you did it with the right heart. And these karmics may have seen that and then interpreted it instead as this kind of, like, better to be a jerk than a pushover sort of energy, or something along those lines of, like, oh, like, I see how to make this DM work, I just got to cut them real deep. But they didn't they didn't understand your heart in doing it. They didn't understand why it worked with the DMs in the way that it did. Like, because in most of those situations, I feel like the DFs in this they weren't trying to get something other than maybe, like, respect, some act right kind of behavior, but they weren't trying to get any money. They weren't trying to get sex. They weren't trying to, like, you weren't trying to manipulate anybody. And these karmics were kind of simultaneously learning about boundaries themselves, but also in a really immature energy. So it's like when a little kid imitates you doing something, and you can tell that they're kind of, like, they see that the thing that you're doing earns a positive result that they want, but they don't understand the mechanisms of how it got there, or why it got there. And so it doesn't turn out right. And so it feels like these karmics may have just seen you standing in your power and kind of done the same thing themselves, but then they took it to a place that was really, really not acceptable, and then got frustrated because they thought that they did the same things that the DFs did. And when it didn't work, they got to a place of just being like, well, fuck it. Like, they kind of revealed their true colors of, like, I wasn't even really in this because of love. And if you're not going to do, like, it was very conditional. Like, if you're not going to pay for everything I want, and you're not going to let me, like, railroad you, and you're not going to do all this, then what am I here for? Like, I came here because, like some of these DMs may have been told a story in the beginning that these karmics just really needed a hand up, and they just needed help, and that they just never got any breaks, and they were having to, like, do bad things with other people just to try to survive. And these DMs, with their beautiful hearts and their particular kinds of trauma, were like, oh, well, I can be that person for you. I can be, maybe that's why I keep saying the word hero lately. Like, they were kind of in this space of, like, I can be that for you. I can unconditionally love you and help you get on your feet and help you get to where you need to go, so you don't have to do that anymore. And so they did, like, they dropped all their boundaries. They just let these karmics do anything and everything they wanted, even if it came into bullying and things like that. And that put them in worse and worse situations with 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 the whole situation shit. And then when they realized that those karmics were not like that's what those karmics had done with the very people before, that they had said they were only doing that because of XYZ and things like that, like these DMs realized that wasn't the truth. The truth was this is a cycle, and these karmics, either even if they can heal from it, are getting so much reward out of it, even if the karmics don't see it themselves, because I don't believe karmics are bad. I think that they're just very unhealed, and it feels like they're seeing that, and they're starting to, these DMs are starting to get to a place where in the past they would have stayed with people like that forever, because they would have felt the compassion in, and the part of themselves that knows that they typically mess up a lot and make a lot of mistakes and have had old cycles, but they're old enough now, and they've spent a lot of their time, playing towards and placating karmics that are just like that, that they're starting to kind of get to that place of like, I'm not a bad person if I don't want to keep doing that. I'm not a bad person if I want to be more, if I want to follow my dreams, if I want to have a better life than that. And it's not awful of me to say, you want to stay on your cycle and do things in the ways that you're doing, and I don't want to. And so even if it does leave you in a bit of a lurch, I'm going to release this, because us both being in a lurch certainly isn't going to help anybody. And if you're comfortable with what you have and what you like, and you have no intention to grow with me, then it's, that's fine, but I don't need to be the one to save you. Kind of releasing the, what do you call it, it's like altruistic narcissism, savior complex, things like that. They're kind of releasing that, like they're realizing it was very romantic in a way, but it was fantasy bonding, and that turned into trauma bonding, and then that made love confusing. And it's, like these DMs feel like DMs that really have a lot of ambition, but they've not followed their ambition because they've gotten stuck in situations like this, and then been reinforced by others who enjoy that sort of thing, that this is life, this is how life is going to be, you're never going to have the time to have fun, you're never going to have the time to follow your dreams, or you're not good enough. Or even if you're good enough, it would cost too much money. And even if you're good enough and you have enough money, well, a lot of people don't make it. You might be one of those people that don't make it, that kind of thing. And it feels like in doing that, they did something different. They kind of created a new timeline or jumped timelines, and it threw these karmics off. They were expecting it to kind of be like it had been with all the others, and this is kind of their discard phase, where they're like, DMs are not doing exactly what I wanted, and they might not even understand or they just may not have gotten to the point to where the knowledge has come to them about conditional love versus unconditional love. And some of them may even have believed that they were giving unconditional love, but the minute that the conditions changed, and it really, especially if these karmics were really involved in terms of money and having like just like full on complete control over everything DMs did, and DMs were like, hey, like, I'm a person, I'm a human, I'm a man, I don't deserve to have my privacy violated all the time, I don't deserve to be treated so disrespectfully when I'm giving everything to you, even just little things like that. Or hey, I do need to see my children from another relationship, or my family, or there's more to life than just what you want, karmic. Those karmics are then like, no, no, like it's my way or the highway, and I don't care whether it's moral or righteous or not. And if you're not going to do it exactly the way I say, when I say, how I say, then those conditions of me giving myself to you or keeping you in this drama triangle with me are done. And they started to already look for new situations. Like a lot of them are probably kind of serial monogamists, and when they kind of follow that. And I keep hearing this too, is that, oh, what is it, the best way to get over someone else is to get under someone new, which is a really, really bad bit of advice, and unfortunately it went around in the world for a long time. So even if you've never heard it, a lot of people act on that. Like they think that the best way to end an old connection, or get over someone else, is to start sleeping with somebody new or have a new relationship. And it's not healthy, and it doesn't, no. But it feels like that's kind of the um it's kind of the Oh, it's so funny. I thought someone was gonna ride by singing, which is fine. It's funny. Somebody, a man on a bicycle singing a funny song. Maybe that's part of the message for you. But it feels like they already started looking for that new person to get under, not to get necessarily to get over these DMs, but to have a new conditional arrangement that provided for them what they think was going to make them happy. And they're kind of following just cycles, just programming that they've been going through. And these DMs have seen that, but because they changed things, they also affected change in the karmics. They were not expecting to have that sort of a change up. Like maybe these DMs realized by the time that this happened, like the fifth, sixth, seventh, 12th time, that it was going to keep happening. And they started to actually grow from that and realize that maybe it wasn't a good idea to just jump in with somebody new, or maybe it would be good to just take some time to be with themselves, like especially if this is like another important or significant relationship that has not worked out for them. And I think that the particular karmics these DMs are sending through to me actually ended up kind of being the kind of karmic for these DMs that it's like when you say you can be right next to someone and still feel 10,000 miles apart, or that, like, you know what, if I'm going to feel lonely and single anyways while I'm with somebody, then why don't I just be single? Like it doesn't serve me to be with somebody that I don't really feel like I'm with, or that I'm connecting with, or feel happy with. And so when these karmics were getting into their discard stage, these DMs were like, you know what? I think actually I'm okay on my own. I think actually I'm happier not arguing about who does the chores. I think that I'm happier exploring my emotions and squishes in these times. And these karmics were expecting more of a pursuit. And that change things a little bit. So these karmics are still, they're like in this place of like trying to secure new resources while trying not to lose the old resources. And also they may, you know, some of these karmics may kind of have the pretty girl syndrome, like used to people holding on to them, used to having connections. Some of them may have even tried to intentionally create legal type connections with these DMs, or get pregnant, or use pregnancy in some form or energy, or children as an energy to create a connection so they could have a longer resource later on, like child support or something like that. And if they didn't get that, then it's like they're worried about having the conditions in 3D that they want later, so they're still kind of trying to hold on to these DMs until they can get that. Or they may be doing a thing where, like, if some of them got married, or they had higher commitments, or like something went on with the lease, they may be kind of trying to manage these DMs in terms of trying to keep them happy while they get themselves situated in a new situation, or long enough to be able to get the papers signed, or get the divorce signed, or get things the way that they want it. So they're like intentionally keeping these DMs kind of pulled in. And the song a few is it a few too many, or sorry, after a few, in that one, it feels like the duality of it is these DMs are seeing these karmics come in and kind of going, come on, you know what, I know things aren't going well, and I've been mean, or you've been mean, or whatever, let's just forget about it and have a couple of drinks. And then after 3 or 4 drinks, it's like then they're back in bed, or they're it feels like things are good for a minute, and that starts, it's good and it's bad. It's bad because that just delays the healing. But it's good because they think these DMs, the messages that they're sending to me, to you, to whoever you are listening, is that they're really seeing their own process. They're really seeing how, like, getting into states like that, getting very drunk, or not taking care of themselves, and not looking for self-love, finding self-worth, they're much more susceptible to falling into people that are not good for them, whether they're innocent enough beings or not. It's just not good for them, and it's not good for the people that they get into. And so it kind of feels like a message of like, shit, I did it again, and I feel bad about that. And it feels like it's triggering times that they have probably done that with others in the past that they really should have let go of, and they got pulled in that way. Um, And on the other side, it's an interesting message. It feels like that same song is also saying, so if your DM recently reached out to you after a while of no contact or minimal contact or weird contact, or they like invited you to go for a meal or just to meet up for like just friendly enough, or something, like maybe they started just communicating with you more. It may have, I feel like some of these DMs might not have even reached out to you, but maybe they started going through old pictures that you guys had, or they went through your Facebook or something, or if you have a channel, they went through your channel, like some sort of way they let themselves think about the connection with you. And it feels like there's this contrast, like they're recognizing that their connection with you was not based on just a few nights of drinking and seeing what happens, but they're kind of relating to like, you know what, I shouldn't have reached out to contact them because I knew I was going to fall back in love with DF right away, or I shouldn't have gone to lunch, or I shouldn't have told them my feelings. And not that they don't want to have that, it's more that like kind of a recognition that they're not ready yet, especially if they're still on the tail ends of the discard phase with a karmic, or multiple karmics. And also kind of a good thing in that way, like especially if you guys met, maybe you met when they were with a karmic and stuff, and like it wasn't like you didn't meet in a drinking situation, but maybe like they're equating it to that, like it feels similar to them as when they would drink and then fall in with the karmic, but they're recognizing that it's different, that they were sober when they fell for you, or that it's not the drinking that causes them to end up leaning against the car with you or in bed with you, that it's talking, it's hanging out, it's you guys being yourselves with each other. And they like that, like they like that it's like that. But it feels like there's a scene from Big Bang Theory that I love it. And it's where like Penny and Leonard had dated for a minute, but then Penny freaked out and was like, no, I can't do this. Like, I feel like you're too smart for me and all this different stuff. And so she broke up with Leonard. And then she tried to go out with people that she used to go out with, which she realized were these really, really dumb guys. Like, they looked really great, and some of them even made great money, but they were really dumb, and a lot of them were jerks and arrogant. And so she got drunk one night, and after turning down a guy that she normally would have had great sex with, and then went and banged on Leonard's door to open it to tell him that he ruined it. He ruined her old style of dating and relating, because now, after being with somebody as smart and sweet and genuine as Leonard, that she could tell that none of the other guys had any of those qualities, and she really liked those qualities. And so now she couldn't just go pick up any old guy at a bar and feel good about it. It feels kind of like that energy from these DMs is like, like kind of like, I really, really love everything about my DF, but it was meeting my DF that completely like it ruined me being able to go back to old styles of relationships, or exes, or karmics who are like the exes and things like that. And they're kind of in that sort of energy, like, I shouldn't have gone towards you when you looked at me. I shouldn't have let myself flirt with you. I shouldn't have gone further, because now my whole world is upside down and I can't go back. you know and then the other song, Pretty Heart, was an interesting one. I even wrote down a couple of the lyrics because they seemed really significant. And it's, what does it say about me that I broke your angel wings? What does it say about me that I broke your pretty heart? And like, it's a song where he's talking about like meeting a gal and helping her get so high up and feel real good, and then dropping her, and like just like doing old business, not good behaviors, their own karmic behaviors, and then like seeing like that you were not you were not like the others, and that it really did, like, it created a break in your angel wings. Obviously you healed it and you're flying, but they're seeing that they did that, like that you were a genuine person. You genuinely love them, love them, and that they did that, and what does it say about them? And that's part of, I think, why those two songs are coming through together, is they're very much like they love you, and they see what they've done now. It might be that they got that karma through these karmics, or maybe through some of your interactions with them you actually revealed your genuine feelings about stuff that they'd done, and there was no way to like deny their own bad behavior, and through time and spirit and everything else and their own nonsense, they now see that you were never going to be like the people that used them and hurt them and did these awful things to them, and they treated you like you would because they got a belief going in their minds that everybody must be like that. It really feels like really deep mother father wounds too, like they probably grew up in an environment where one or both parents talk crap about the other parents, and it created an identity crisis, and it created a split between the masculine and feminine energy, so that in some moments they saw masculine energy as completely bad, and all men are pigs kind of thing, and then they, on the other side, they would see all feminine energy as bad, as like all women are manipulators, like that kind of thing. And so even though everything about you felt real and it felt good, they were constantly afraid because that put them at odds with that old belief. And they, for what I don't know if like they've always seen it and didn't trust it, or if these DMs like didn't trust it and are now seeing it, but either way, they're seeing that, you, while you clearly have your own flaws, you were never going to be like that, and now they're realizing that in an effort to try to protect themselves from you, which they realize they never had to do, they hurt you. And they're feeling really ashamed of themselves for how they did that, or even if they didn't hurt you directly, if they let others hurt you and they didn't stop it. And I think these DMs are also kind of in a general energy of feeling like they're seeing how throughout their lives, like they may not have been the person to actually hurt someone in most situations, but they have been around others hurting other people. Kind of like if you're watching somebody bully somebody else and you don't step in and say, that's messed up. Like either you're worried about getting hurt, or it could be that you see someone parenting their children in abusive ways, and you say, well, I'm not going to get involved in that because it's not my kids, and what's it my business to say anything? But you should have said something, even if it's not your business. You see somebody getting hurt, especially a child, you say something. You do something. You see somebody getting bullied, do something, stand up. And yes, your life is valuable, your emotions are valuable, but there are moments like that that really test people. And it feels like these DMs, especially because they have that divine masculine energy in them, it really hurts them to see themselves as the type of person who was cowardly, who did not stand up for other people. And it feels like, especially if you guys had some kind of union before and they really saw your deep heart, that in order, like if you either asked them to go or they put it in their minds that it would be better for you or for both of them if they left, they allowed a lot of people to talk shit about you, and they didn't say anything. It may have even been something that happened before that. Maybe you even called them out on that, like, hey, why don't you defend me? Why do you let people think this way or do these things? Like, do you think that way about me? And so now they're really being faced with all the times that you and other people that are important to them have been hurt by the behaviors of the karmic friends and lovers and people around them that they did not stand up to, and that they did not go to the other people or go to you and be like, hey, that wasn't me, or I'm sorry that I let them do that, or that I pulled in somebody who would do that. And they're really feeling that, and it's really just like they're thinking about the times that they've made you cry and really realizing like none of that was some intention to manipulate them, and maybe even realizing actually how strong and brave it was that you were willing to share your genuine feelings with them, especially if they'd hurt you, because a lot of people won't share those feelings with somebody who is clearly, either is going to hurt them or has hurt them in the past. And if you did, you actually did something that others don't do. And they're really seeing the depth of things, and rather than seeing you as somebody that I think a lot of these DMs may have seen their DFs as kind of the kind of person who really never felt that deeply, or who was just, it's weird, like I want to skip to the end. Like they're now seeing you as very resilient. They're not seeing you as somebody who never cared that much. They're not seeing you as somebody who was manipulating them like others did. They're recognizing that you are very resilient. That yes, you do get hurt. You do have feelings. You do have big stuff, but you often choose not to focus on that because you know that victim energy is not going to help you get anywhere. It's not going to change anything to focus on that stuff. And so you work on those things. You don't just compartmentalize them, you work on them, and that's why you come out stronger in the end. And I think because these DMs are seeing that in you, they're recognizing that it wasn't like that they were kind of treating you like, oh, well, DF is strong and resilient. She always forgives me and she'll always be there, so I can do anything I want. Or it's okay that I just had this crazy meltdown. She'll love me anyways. Like, they're now going, you know what, crap. I really took DF for granted. And because I took DF for granted, I hurt DF in ways that nobody else could have or even would have. And I really like that. I feel like I'm getting this image of them feeling like they got mad in a moment and went over and like broke your angel wings and then watched you heal it by yourself. And like they were thinking that the wings were fake. Like if somebody thought that you were wearing what's that movie? Ace Ventura, where like he thinks that he thinks that the trans woman is wearing a mask or a suit, keeps trying to like pull off the face, and realizes it's not a wig, it's not like that's all real. And it feels like the DMs are kind of in that state to where it's like they feel like they've been trying to pull off your mask. They feel like you've been pretending or fake or like really good at acting, and realize that it was never an act and that it was really there. And the breaking of the wings was it's like an unintentionally and intentionally supposed to be to reveal the real you. Like if they could make you really, really, really mad, they were sure that you would turn out to be like everybody else. And you didn't. Like maybe you did some things in a natural reaction to being hurt or disrespected, but you never made the choices that anybody else would have made. You never came out of it the same way as everybody else. You chose love, you chose light, you chose kindness, you kept going. And it feels like that song, go listen to it, the Pretty Heart. Like it feels like they're thinking about that, and they're going, what does it say about me as a person? And they're really kind of looking too at this, like if you generally, for the most part, been consistently loving with them, but you've had healthy boundaries in that, and they're kind of looking at it going like, how I'm an awful person for doing that. I shouldn't have done that. How could they still love me? How could they see the light in me? But they're also, it's like they're on the precipice of this moment where they can feel the part inside themselves that you love. They can see that part in themselves. It's just had so many layers on top of it of messages from childhood, trauma messages of you will always screw it up. It doesn't matter how good you are. And no matter how much you learn how to do it right, you're going to make some wrong step and it's going to screw it all up. Or you're not good enough to deserve that sort of thing. They're really sitting in really deep self-worth messages, but they're also feeling that part of themselves that you have put your faith in. And because you put your faith in it, regardless of whatever 3D things that have been going on, they did not fall as deeply as they would have before into those negative messages. And they're, I think, in kind of these moments where they went into dark night of soul and they probably were really crappy with you, when they come out of it, it's kind of like, I mean, how do you put it? It's like, I guess I'm going to use a kink reference. Like, if you go through, if somebody takes you to subspace and you go there and you fall asleep, and maybe like you didn't have a great experience necessarily, like it wasn't awful, but it triggered some stuff. And when you went to sleep, like you just assumed that you screwed it up and it was done, and that the person you were interacting with was going to be gone. But when you woke up, they were still there. and they were doing aftercare, and they were being everything that they said they would be, but you had expected that you had broken the contract with it, of the arrangement, and screwed something up and scared, or had a weird reaction, and you thought they would have left, or they wouldn't have been there in the ways that they were genuinely caring and not holding like icky space. And so for them, it's kind of like every time they've gone through Dark Night of Soul, and you have already self leveled and been there when they come out of it, that it's like you're still here. You're still here. Kind of like a kid, like a little kid that's like you're in a department store and they get excited and they like run off down an aisle to toys, and they don't wait for you to come, and then when they go back to the aisle, you're still there, and they're kind of surprised, like maybe you were doing shopping, or they just expected. I don't know. It feels like these DMs kind of have felt invisible a lot of their lives, or like invisible and mixed in with the message of not good enough. So it's like not just that people don't see you or don't see when you run off and disappear, but that they don't care. You know, that kind of thing. Like they feel like they'd like it'd be less of a burden without these DMs when they were kids, kind of thing. I don't know. I feel like they got the message growing up a lot. The kids were burdens, like whether they were told that or it was just the experience of the way that the adults acted around them, that they kind of got that message that children are a burden, childhood is a burden, to indulge your child heart makes you a burden, that kind of thing, or to have needs makes you a burden. And so they're kind of facing that stuff and seeing that if you've still been there in the moments when they've woken up and come in, come higher vibration, they're feeling really appreciative of that, and yet also confused, but also in a state of like, I feel like they're really loving it, and they're loving that in you. How do I even put it? I'm lighting the smoke for this one. It feels like, because you have been consistent in working on you, especially if you've been consistent in working on building new friendships and working on your career and working on getting, being having better self-worth and self-love and doing healthy things, and you've removed your, like, that former, like, I'll die if they're not with me kind of vibe, and you're not worried about the outcomes, you're just comfortable, so you're just being you, that they can tell, like I said earlier on, these are DMs channeling these songs that can tell when someone's pulling something over on them, and they can tell when somebody's being genuine. It feels like they're not exactly fully trusting of that ability in themselves, but they can tell, and they can tell that you've really been doing the healing work. And they also see you as a very independent person, and so they're seeing you as somebody that you could find somebody who could give you all the things that they know that you want, but you're still reflecting back to them their own goodness. That's what I was trying to get to. They're feeling like they're seeing, maybe even for the, like, not the first time, but the first time it's really clicked, that people around them reflect them, and that a lot of the karmic energies, like at work, at home, with friends, in bed, all that they've been reflecting the side of DMs that are, that are in that victim narcissism, that are in that stagnant energy, that are in those drama triangles. And then they're also recognizing that you are, like, you could reflect that with them, but you're not. You're reflecting the side of them that they love about themselves, and they can see that you're not doing it to get something from them. You're just being yourself, and but in being yourself and being who you are reflecting to them parts of what they love about themselves. And it's likely that because of the unique nature and however you met, and how contrasting you are to those that they were used to before, that they probably got in with a fair amount of karmics who like started out like just like kind of started out like making fun of either your goodness or your silliness or trying to find your weaknesses, and the DMs were kind of like, yeah, well, I mean, all people have weaknesses, and as long as nobody hears us talking crap, then whatever. But then those karmics started to pick at things about you that the DMs actually appreciate about themselves and probably found very endearing about you. And so, in a way, these karmics actually were the ones to, which isn't surprising because this is oftentimes what karmic relationships are about. They woke the DMs up to the fact that, like, the things that they find lovable about themselves are things that they find lovable in you, and that the people that they were with, like, if they didn't like those qualities in you, then they definitely don't like them in the DMs. And a lot of these may have even been very endearing things that the DMs wanted to experience more of, and were maybe even either they tricked themselves into believing they could do it, or these karmics gave them some sort of a story that made them feel like they could be in the situationship with them and really be themselves in a new way. Like a lot of them feel like they've been under masks for a long time, and their interactions with you really made them feel like they needed to be themselves, and they thought that they could be that. They may have even given these karmics a lot more detailed information about themselves in states of vulnerability, trying to do that. And in doing so, they really shared a lot of information with these, whether they're new people to the DMs or they were like an ex who'd not been around for a while or something. Like, they opened up and gave them information they typically would have only given you. Like, you're the only other person they'd shared it with, but they tried to take it to a point of like, no, like, I can be this way with anybody. I can be open with anybody. I can be deep with anybody. And then instead of being getting the reward from that, because it wasn't you and it wasn't healthy people who like appreciate the DM's realnesses, then they started to see that it's not them. Well, it is them. It's like, I feel like the interactions, whatever it was, whatever the ridicule was, it was stuff that you and your DM share, that the DM, like, in their hearts and minds, see nothing bad about, nothing wrong about. And because the karmics kept going at it, it actually helped the DM see their own self-worth, and that it's not that the sweetness in them or even the masculine assertiveness in them was ever wrong. It was simply incompatible with the old ways that they were in it, which was meant to teach them to love themselves, not to just seek new relationships to try to find the right person to fulfill them. And probably this is like, if if you had, if I feel like these DMs had like commitment phobias and stuff, and that many of you may have actually been on your way with them to having full union and marriage and things like that, but you wanted it in a real way, and that scared them. And they also, they did withhold a fair amount of the pieces and parts of themselves. You probably reflected them and did the same thing. And so it really challenged a lot of that stuff for them. Anyways, I've gone on way longer than I meant to, so I'm just going to pull some of these energy oracle cards to get kind of like more specificness on like what, like, the I feel like I just channeled the, like, how they're feeling and what's going on, but not what they wanted to say. Like, maybe that was a lot of what they wanted to say, but I'm going to pull some cards anyways, and we'll see if they have more messages. DMs, do you have messages for the DFs that are called to this video? Oh man, that the I wanted to call it the Queen of Hearts reverse, but it's the woman holding a heart in reverse. It's popped up twice there, but it's not out. So some sort of a, it could be it could be them feeling like that's you, in terms of like, they broke your angel wings or something, or that could be karmic. It feels like it's kind of dual. I feel like there's a fair amount of energy for these DMs channeling in that the things that you are doing in your DF energy, especially if you've worked on a lot of your healing, is actually very similar to the things that any karmics around them are doing right now, but they're in a different spirit of it. And it's probably kind of tripping these DMs out a little bit, but it's also showing them the why, if that makes sense. So the card that came out, though, right off the bat, fifth chakra, Archangel Gabriel, 39, which is funny. It's 12, so hanged man energy. And also in reverse, it makes sense. So if they came in and communicated with you or wanted to meet up or go out or do anything, or it seemed like they were, I feel like this is not just recently, but it feels like something that happened recently, like a small breadcrumb, a small offering, but also like that there may have been something that happened just after New Year's. Maybe or even around Valentine's Day this year, and I want to say as far back as Halloween, but it feels like it almost relate. It's like connected kind of to holidays and family type stuff. So maybe something, I don't know. Just think about what was going on. I want to say as far back as last September. You may have seen them kind of do a Knight of Swords kind of thing, like dash in towards you, give you some information that made you feel like they were not coming for you. They were coming towards you, or that they were getting free. They may have been communicating a lot more than they are now, and then they dashed out. And then there's something like that they did recently that's like that. And the reason, like, I think they're pulling this card because they're saying that it's the songs stuff, especially that first one, a few too many. Is that? Oh, after a few. Like so, they're still like maybe they thought that they were free. It feels like they're being quiet because they recognize there have been several moments where they thought that they were going to be free and they were determined in that moment, and then they got pulled back in with these karmics and they're not 100% sure why. And so not understanding the mechanisms of how it is that they got pulled back into that, or why it is that they're having trouble having healthy boundaries and saying no when they know the situation is bad. They're seeing it like when they gave you the information before that they were coming towards you, that it hurt you. It hurt you because they said, I'm on my way, and then nope, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? I'm happy with this person. It feels like these DMs may have even like given you like a note or a love letter or a voicemail, like something that's even like evidence, but because they were so used to weird karmic cycles and being a bit of a player, they left enough ambiguity in it that later when things with the karmic were kind of back, I'd say they were back on the wagon, so to speak, that they had plausible deniability, and they didn't think that. I feel like these DMs, some of them genuinely thought you would see it, like that they weren't doing that to try to hurt you, that they thought of you as such a magical being that you would go, oh, I see what's happening. They just need to learn something, and it's fine. Like, I'm good doing my own thing. Like, they really saw you as that kind of a person, and were like, I don't need to communicate all this. They're gonna get it, that there's something weird about this that I can't get out of it right now, and they're gonna just know that I love them. And they kind of thought, well, it's a lot like, taking you for granted, because they didn't feel like you'd ever leave or go, or even energetically be like, I got better things to do than this stuff. And they're starting to realize that no matter how magical or powerful or profound or mystical you may be, that you are very, very human, and you have a human heart. And because you are so strong in your vulnerability, that they actually hurt you far more than they thought that they did. And so this is why they're not communicating with you so much right now, or why their communication is weird. But it feels like this is what they want to say. They want to say, I'm working I'm working on communicating right now. I'm working on communicating in the situation that I'm in, because until I am free of that situation, I cannot trust myself, or I don't feel like I can trust myself to be able to tell you I'm coming and know that it is true, and know that I'm not bringing drama with me. And I also know that I see that I hurt you in many ways that I did not intend to hurt you. And I don't want to do that again. I want it to be real. I don't want it to be a joke. I don't want to be immature. I want to be the kind of masculine who, when he says he's going to do something, he does it. when he says he's on his way, he's on his way. I want to be the kind of masculine who's on time. I want to be the kind of masculine who never treats his DF like, oh, she's super resilient, she'll be fine, I got to protect myself. I want to be the kind of masculine who stands up for other people being bullied, and I know that I called in this situation and I need to work on it. And then on the other side, it feels like it's kind of like, DF, I have so many messages to you that I have started and written and rewritten and sometimes completely deleted and wrote over, that I have pages and journals and notebooks and note things in my app that are full of all these messages to you, and none of them feel good enough. They feel like they're full of excuses. They feel like they're full of old me stuff, and I'm trying to figure out how to communicate with you in a way that shows you how much I love you and appreciate you and want you in my life, and I'm just afraid because I don't trust myself not to hurt you more. And I am putting together the communication, and I'm having faith that taking the time to really figure out how I feel and what I want, and to not rush to send you something, I'm having faith that you get that. And that it's not that I don't need to rush in, and that's part of why I communicated very Knight of Swords the way that I did before and Knight of Wands before, because I felt pressured, because I felt like if I didn't tell you right now how I felt, even if I couldn't tell you the whole thing, even if I couldn't come to you, that you would leave, that you would think I didn't love you, that you would think that I was happier in this situation. And I realize now that it hurt you more and it created more confusion. And so now I am having faith that I can take the time to heal myself, and that if I'm right about you and you're right about me, then when I am ready, that spirit will line us up and I'll know what to say, and I don't have to pre-plan it. But until then, I'm just writing my feelings. I'm observing my feelings, and they don't feel safe to send to you just yet, but I will soon, and I will communicate far more. It kind of feels like the message too of like, I want to tell you everything, but I know that once I do, oh, how do I say that? I feel like there's moments when I'm listening to Divine Maverick, and she channels and she does the other languages come in, and she's explained sometimes that she'll be like talking to the guide to get more information. I feel like it's kind of one of those moments, like, how do you translate that? It's in English, but I don't know how to put it in words. It's like, it feels like they're trying to give you a yellow light, red light. They don't want to give, like, they feel like the minute that they give you any sort of verbal, like either written or by voice, like any sort of definite communication of their feelings for you, and that things are falling apart with the karmic situation. I think they may be worried about an old version of you, or it's still fears from the ways that other karmics have acted, that they're it feels like they're afraid that you're gonna like rush in, that like if they tell you what's really going on, that you're going to rush in and pull them out of it and be like, yeah, this is enough, nobody hurt my DM, kind of thing. Like, they see you as that kind of person, and they're kind of at war with it because, one, they don't want you to have to clean up their messes. Two, they don't want to drag you into that because they feel like they've already dragged you into enough. And three, they're kind of in this space of like, they really want to be rescued, but they're realizing that they've had, especially feminine figures, not just romantic partners, but friends and family members, maybe siblings, or maybe their actual mothers, rescue them a lot, and they don't want that to be a part of their future story anymore. They want to be able to say that they can, I feel like they want to be able to say that they can work their own way out of a wet paper bag. Like that joke that some people make about, you couldn't even find your way out of a wet paper bag, like that sort of thing. They want to feel like that could never be held against them again, that they could get stuck in a situation and they didn't just wait it out until the other person was done, that they got themselves out of it. And they may be in a situation where they're already on the precipice of that, especially if these karmics are already like, who was it? Do 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 out my back door. So there's a third song for you. Um, I'm gonna pull one more card, but I'm noticing on the bottom here that we have strategy in reverse and the thinking man in reverse, and yeah, wow, okay, and all tied up, and then the storm warning card on the bottom. And temple path. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. So 12, 10, 46, 12, and 39. I don't know if those numbers will be significant, but what that tells me is that in the shadow work that they're doing, there's it feels like part of why you're getting the way they're saying this is that they're being quiet because a storm is happening and a bigger storm is brewing. It's likely the drama of letting things go, so they feel kind of tied up, and they also see you as kind of this, like, I mean, look at her face, like she doesn't look horribly unhappy there, but clearly she's bound up. So it feels like they're sensing the energy of knowing that even if you have healed a lot and you're doing great, that they know that you're holding yourself for them, and they find it both endearing but also frustrating, because it's like creating where they feel like they know that they need to be there and that you want them and that you're willing to, like, glow up and live your life and have space for them in your life than to do like these other karmics would do and get under somebody new, sort of thing. But it also feels like their energy, like it almost feels actually like spirit is doing this. um like spirit is the one saying, no, you can't talk to DF right now. Or you can't articulate things well to DF, or anytime you try to talk to DF, you're going to have a really strong emotional reaction because spirit wants them to learn something significant. And it feels like this energy, this strategy in reverse and thinking man in reverse, it feels like these DMs were like either just as immature as the karmics that they got entangled with, or very close, and that these karmics, and they manifested these karmics to reflect their own level of immaturity. And when they did that, like, these a lot of these DMs, it feels like they had a plan, and their plan was not really a great plan, and it was kind of a it was an old plan. Like, it feels like a lot of these DMs are probably not the ones who've ever really broken up with somebody. They've wanted to avoid that. They may have tried in the past and it got really watery and it was somebody that was either very unhealed or genuinely very manipulative. And so they didn't ever want to be the one to do the breaking up. They don't like to hurt people. They don't want to. So their strategy was kind of this, like, I'm gonna isolate myself. I'm not gonna be very fun to be around. For a while, it was like I'll keep giving the money. I might give the sex. I might, pretend to be decent, but it's kind of passive aggressive. Like, I'm just gonna not be. I'm not gonna let myself shine. And assuming that that doesn't give them what they want, then they'll leave, and I'll get to have what I want. But that didn't work because this was specifically a karmic called in, likely to help them see the inappropriateness and immaturity of that sort of thing. And it may have also been too that some of these masculines were kind of triangulating you and these karmics to see, like, I feel like there was a lot of these DMs are saying there's been a lot of times that it's been confusing for them because these karmics have done the same kinds of things at the same time as DF. And I don't think a lot of that was intentional from the karmics. I think that spirit, I think that the DMs manifested this situation so that they could kind of see you, like, are you the real thing? And to have somebody else who is, like, either faking that energy or doing the same thing but with a different spirit, a different heart in it, they really started to see the contrast. Especially a lot of these DMs are telling me that their commitment fears with their DFs were, I'm hearing the name Charlie. I don't know who that's relevant for, but it's in there. Like, a lot of these DMs were feeling like they were afraid to fully, like, to either end an old commitment and come to you, or to have a full commitment with you, because in the past they had been with others who seemed all good at first and then changed the minute that they were on board and going to do it, and they didn't trust themselves, and they translated that to not trusting you. And, like, so when things started to go squirrely and they realized that you were not going to be like the others and it really did hurt you, they were challenged to have to heal that, and they were still afraid. They were still afraid that maybe either you would become that way with over time, with age, or that you were just really really good at faking it, and like that you were really good at pretending to be good. um I'm not really understanding a lot of it, so I hope you get from it what you need. Either way, it feels like they called in a karmic who was very similar to you, but they were similar to you in the sense that when you would do things that were of a good spirit and were things a lot of people would do, that it triggered these masculines to think of their exes and their mother and other people that did things like that to them, and they wanted to trust it, and they did, and they got hurt, and so they were comparing you to them and assuming the worst would happen. And so then they got lined up with karmics who were doing this, like, very similar things, but this provided them the contrast. This third party situation provided the contrast of, like, there's a lot of times in life that people are going to do the same things, but it's not always for the same spirit. It's not always going to get you hurt. Like, maybe they're used to people who are possessive and crazy jealous and things like that, and that tried to get them not to, like, kind of tried to get them isolated. Like, I don't like any of your friends, I don't like this, I don't like your family, you just got to trust me, just don't be around them. And then maybe when they met with you, like, you noticed that the people that they have connections with were hurting them, that they were using them, or they weren't very good friends, or that they were doing unhealthy things, and you said something and you're like, I'm worried about you, DM, this is going to hurt you, this isn't good. But because they had the experience in the past of being isolated, like, kind of indiscriminate, it was really to get them alone. They were, and that's a scary situation if you've been through it. If you've been in abusive relationships like that, there's a reason it can create, like, CPTSD and stuff like that. So when you started to say something, or it might have been a different conversation, but just as the example, you started saying something about, hey, these friends aren't really that great for you, DM, why don't you make some new friends? You don't have to get rid of the old ones. Or maybe you even just outright said, those friends are not good for you. Get rid of them and get new friends. You're awesome. You can make new good friends that are good for you. But they perceived it as a threat, as a warning that you were going to turn into these other people. And then, so whatever they've been going through right now in their interactions has been showing them the difference between, like, somebody who's trying to isolate you to make you easier to manipulate or just to mess with you, versus somebody who's genuinely saying, hey, I wouldn't, like, generally have a problem with somebody else's friends, but these friends are hurting you. I just saw 1:11:11 on the timer, which means I need to get off of here. I was supposed to make a phone call. But I want to say, like, I feel like they had a plan. The old plan did not work, and it was a plan of, basically, I'll just wait the karmic out. Like, I mess everything up anyways, and if I just make myself not as attractive, if I don't do the things that I would normally do, if I don't play along with everything, the karmic will eventually get, they're conditional, they'll leave. But these karmics didn't do that, or didn't do it in the timing that the DMs expected, or right now, maybe as the karmics started to do discard, DMs were like thinking, okay, I'll just let them slip away, and that's not working. And it feels like these DMs have spent a lot of time in isolation because of the situation. They've had a lot of time to think, and they're not happy about it. They may have some of them may have even found out, like, gotten some literal evidence that confirmed their intuition that the karmics were genuinely just using them, that that their back and forthness, their fine, I'm leaving you, or why do you treat me this way, or that they've been pulling in other karmics to, like, make them jealous, that they found their strategy. Maybe even, I'm feeling like, I don't normally get it from this, but this feels like they found some kind of message. It could have been a text message or a call or something that they found that showed them that it was a strategy, that the karmic was doing all these things, and they're not happy about it. It also feels like it feels like these karmics are also kind of in this energy to where you can see, anybody could see in 3D, they're pulling away, they're going away, they're getting ready to ghost, but they're kind of giving DMs this whole like, I'm not making any plans, I don't know what you mean, or I just need some space, like I don't know what you mean, I don't know what you mean, I'm not doing anything, you should just trust me, which may have been arguments that they may have been having too. They may have been constantly under attack for their own loyalty and been going, look, karmic, I'm not doing anything with anybody else. I'm with you. You just need to trust me. And now those karmics are kind of taking it to another space of like reflecting that back to them, but in a negative way. Like, you should just trust me when they're totally not being trustworthy and they are making plans. They do have a strategy. And these DMs are doing that and feeling that. And they're like, they're not liking it. Um, I'm feeling like storm warning is definitely a big one to keep an eye on, and that, but temple path behind it. I feel like that's important. Whatever is going to happen after these storms is going to lead them to their temple path. Oh wow, yeah. Okay, so underneath this card number 25 in reverse, Goddess of the Moon in reverse, that tells me negative magic. And then also maybe this eclipse is going to be very big for these masculines. And then attachment is right under that, and door to romance. So I feel like they're saying, please be patient with me. I kind of like this. Please be patient with me. I was a stupid, petulant child, and I'm sorry. And I know that's not enough. That's why I'm not saying anything right now. Oh, my phone thing. But I will say something soon. And thank you for still being there when I wake up. Like that kind of energy. Anyways, y'all, thank you for those of you who sat here and listened to me ramble off these channeled messages. I feel like these DMs are really, they're putting out a lot in the 5D, and it feels like energy that is going to soon translate into a lot of communication in the 3D, but it might be sloppy. It might be weird because I feel like they're going to come into this energy of, fuck it, I'm just going to say what's on my heart, whether it's good or bad. I don't need it to be perfect. Kind of healing from perfectionism energy, but because of that, it's going to kind of come out in like a water cannon fashion of a lot of things all at once. So if that does happen, remember, one, practice the pause. If they send you a bunch of stuff, even if they send you just a little thing and you're in the middle of something else, don't stop just to be like, oh my gosh, DM messaged me. I must message them back right now, or don't be in a space to where you're like, oh my gosh, they just sent me something so sweet and heartfelt that I need to stop right now and write them a novel of equal size and stature so that they know that I really love them. No, they know that you love them. That's why they're sending it to you. Take it in, read it, love it, read it a few times, and enjoy what you like in it. Maybe laugh a little bit at some of the haphazard parts, or like, I don't know, like, don't treat it codependently, like you have to immediately do something about it. Just enjoy what it is for the moment that it is. And even if some of their messages are like angry messages about old things that are so long gone, or that they're projecting on you the feelings that they would like to share to get closure with the karmic, like, just feel the energy of it. Love yourself in it. You don't have to rush it. You don't have to respond to it. It's not going to go away if you don't, I'm not saying ignore them, but I'm just saying, when you get this communication, when they start acting in ways that are consistent with them coming towards you, just enjoy each moment for what it is. Each moment is delicious. It doesn't matter whether it leads to more or not. Just enjoy each of those moments, and you'll see a definite change in reflection to yourself and to them when you do that. All right, y'all. I'll probably do some other videos today. I'm not sure if I'll have my lovely pink bunny hat on or not, but I appreciate you coming to watch these videos and adding your vibes to the tribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.